What's up, family? I hope everyone is doing okay out there, in good spirits and in good health. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mediazewtv. Today we're discussing who meant more to their record label, Tupac or Biggie. Before we get started, thanks again for your support, and can you please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. All right, let's get right into it. Now, me personally, I gotta say Biggie, and here's why. Outside of himself and Craig Mack, Bad Boy really didn't have any powerhouse artists at that time. It was Craig Mack initially, but then Biggie became the reason that Bad Boy blew up into something even bigger. And once Craig Mack left, Biggie single-handedly carried Bad Boy on his back. He took over the East Coast by himself, and Biggie was the reason people even started comparing Bad Boy to Death Row in the first place. Now, let's talk about Death Row. By the time Tupac got there, Death Row was already one of the biggest labels in the game. They had Dr. Dre, Snoop, and the Dogg Pound, and many more. They were pretty stacked. But when Tupac joined, that's when they became really unstoppable. And Biggie, on the other hand, really polished his sound after Tupac mentored him a bit back in 1994, after Party and Bullshit. He took time to craft his style, and that growth was real crucial. But here's the difference. After Biggie died, Bad Boy got bigger. Mace came in and completely changed the label's trajectory and image into something else. And meanwhile, after Tupac died, Death Row pretty much crumbled. They tried to keep dropping music, even with Suge in prison, but the only real success they had was Snoop's Dogfather album. After that, nothing else really hit the charts. And Death Row's downfall really was their inability to break new artists. And in my opinion, that was Suge's mistake. When he got out of prison, he signed Spider Loc, Eastwood, Crooked I, and even Left Eye from TLC, but none of them made any noise. The only one still relevant today is Crooked I. And with Left Eye passing away before she could drop an album on Death Row, it was pretty much a wrap at that point. Now, let's keep it a buck. It was hard for Suge to recover after losing an artist like Tupac. Death Row's downfall really started when Dr. Dre left, but they were still thriving for a while after. Daz was making a few hits, and even though Dr. Dre dipped not long after Tupac joined, they were still pretty much winning. But after Tupac died, Snoop's Dogfather was solid, but it couldn't touch his debut Doggy Style, even though it went double platinum without Dr. Dre's production. Tupac's music was still keeping the lights on at Death Row even after he died. And let's not forget, Tupac died for his label. He took on his and Suge's enemies, and he was the shining star of Death Row. He didn't make the label, but he pushed Death Row to new heights. And honestly, he unintentionally put more eyes on Bad Boy too. Pac's main goal with Death Row was expansion. You can hear it in his interview with Sway. Biggie, on the other hand, was planning to leave Bad Boy altogether. Biggie was huge for his label, but I don't think people realized just how big until 1997. Tupac was expansive while Biggie was focused on creating something new after Bad Boy. He had a label deal with Atlantic Records right before his death. Now think about this. What would Bad Boy be without Biggie's start? Meanwhile, Death Row was already a thing before Tupac, but after Tupac, it wasn't. Bad Boy kept going into the late 90s and 2000s with Mace and others, but Death Row died after Tupac. It's crazy how Death Row fell apart without Tupac, just because they didn't know how to really run a business or market their artists. And the CEO, Suge, he couldn't stay out of jail. Even Biggie's mom, Miss Valletta Wallace, said in an interview, Tupac loved my child. It was Puffy that came between them. And she was a wise woman, in my opinion. She appreciated what Tupac had did for Biggie. It's just sad how everything ended because they were both easily number one. And that's why Death Row and Bad Boy were the biggest labels at the time. Tupac recorded more songs and made Death Row a ton of money, but Biggie just didn't live long enough to do as much for Bad Boy. But still, I got to give it to Biggie because while Tupac was hot, Death Row already had classics like The Chronic and Doggy Style. Biggie was Bad Boy's flagship artist once Craig Mack left. He set the tone for the other rappers, even though he was sharing the spotlight at first. But Biggie stole that shine and he just ran with it. And also, Biggie is a direct product of Bad Boy and Diddy. People just don't give Puffy enough credit for shaping Biggie into the legend that he became. Yes, Big was talented as hell, but without Bad Boy, he might have just been another dope Brooklyn rapper who never made it nationwide. Now, Tupac going to Death Row was like Kevin Durant joining the Golden State Warriors. Hell, they were already champions, and he took them to another level. But let's not forget, Tupac did a lot for Interscope too. His album Tupacalypse Now was the first hip-hop record ever on that label. Tupacalypse Now charted at number 64, and Strictly for My Niggas hit number 24 and went gold by September 1993. But people act like Tupac wasn't a household name by 1993, when he was. At that time, Death Row had Dr. Dre, Snoop, and the Dogg Pound, plus Tupac, while Bad Boy only had Biggie. Craig Mack flopped after Flavor in Your Ear, and nobody else on Bad Boy could compete with Death Row. So in closing, in my opinion, Biggie did more for Bad Boy than Tupac did for Death Row. Biggie made Bad Boy a household name, while Death Row was already number one before Tupac got there. But what do y'all think? Leave your comments below, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Mediazewtv. And if you enjoyed the video and haven't done so already, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And remember to put God first, stay engaged, and stay informed. Peace.